This morning, I'm delighted to welcome Ginny Fellows along for a careers chat. Ginny is a vet, and rather than me try and explain in incredible detail what that entails, I'm going to let Ginny introduce herself.
Yes, so hello, I'm Ginny. I've been a vet for the last 5 years, and now I just see small animals, so mainly dogs and cats, the odd rabbit, the odd guinea pig. And whatever else can fit through the door of the practice, basically.
And you're based in a practice the same as that we would take our dogs and cats to for their boosters and all that kind of thing.
So yeah. Very routine, first opinion vet, equivalent of your GP. So yeah, whatever comes through the door, it can be anything from something very basic to from sort of vaccine through to something a bit more complicated.
Okay, so you've been a vet for 5 years. Did you always know you wanted to be a vet? Was that the plan all the way through school?
Yes, yeah, I was set on it since I was about 7 years old, and I had a little bit of a wobble when I was about 16, after I'd done a few days of work experience, and I thought, oh gosh, this is quite a lot of responsibility and things. But once I'd had that little wobble, I was set on it, and that sort of guided, my A-level choices, my GCSE choices, and then my degree and my career.
So tell us what your examination choices were at school. Where did you go to school? What A-levels, that kind of thing? I
was at the high school in Norwich for the whole of high school and then sixth form. My GCSE choices, I kind of got a choice of triple or double science, I think it was. So I did the triple science, and then my other options, I did art, which actually was one of the more interesting and probably useful tasks. One of those projects was sewing. So that I use on a daily basis now.
Yeah.
I did, what did I do? Geography, French and German. So in amongst all maths and everything else.
Yeah.
And then A-levels, I did chemistry, biology, maths and physics, plus the further maths when I was given that option. And that gave me a really good basis. I've got to admit, if I was to do it again, I'd probably pick an essay subject in there, because I was really unprepared to have to write essays as parts of your kind of tests and things, part of your exams at university. So my short answer abilities, my multiple choice abilities at university were my strongest. Writing essay was not my forte.
Yeah. So what would you, if you had your time again and you could drop one of those subjects in favour of an essay-based subject, what would it be? Because vets or budding vets often assume that they have to have all the sciences and maths lined up. So if you could go back again, what choice of A-levels would you take?
I would still do chemistry as an essential. You've got to have chemistry. Maths was most useful for the statistics component of it, and biology, although actually isn't essential, is pretty useful. So physics would be the one to go.
Okay.
Although I think if I was more of a orthopedic minded vet, that one might stay, might be a bit more useful and stay. But no, I have more of an interest in medicine, so biology is more for me, and I'd have dropped the physics and probably done something like geography.
Okay, that's really interesting, because we do quite often speak with budding vets who say, well, no, it's got to be science, and it's interesting to hear actually that the art at GCSE was useful for the fine motor skills of textiles and sewing and using our hands. There's all these things that come into play. Yeah, okay. And where did you go and do your veterinary training?
So I went to Cambridge, and I picked the course because I thought it would suit me. My other option was Nottingham.
Mm-hmm.
So Cambridge do a very academic course. You learn all the theory, then you apply it. Nottingham do much more of an integrated course, so you kind of learn your theory as you're applying it, which, for me, in terms of kind of how I like to learn, I like to know what I'm doing before I do it, rather than having a go and learning what I'm doing kind of while I'm having a go.
Okay, so the added bonus of going to Cambridge, of course, but you very much picked it on the fact on how you would learn, what you would do, and how it would be applied in a real setting.
Yeah, and how I thought it would suit me as well. I'm quite academic minded. I like the fine details.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, probably makes very little difference, but for me, I find that gives me a better understanding.
Okay, and how did you find the course? How long were you there? Where did you do experience placements and so on and so forth? Can you tell us a bit about that?
So I did 6 years there, and that includes an intercalation. So I actually have a degree in pathology as well.
Mm-hmm.
that year out, that sort of third year, was actually really, really valuable for kind of having a break. But it also opens a lot of doors. If you suddenly realise, oh, I don't want to be a vet, you've got another degree under your belt, so you've got to kind of launch off if needed. Because probably about 20% of my year did drop out at that point, so it's quite a big drop out there. Yeah, the terms were really nice and short at Cambridge, so I could do lots in my holidays, but it meant that, yeah, my holidays were packed with placements here, there and everywhere. And my placements were quite varied. I did some sort of quite locally. I went further afield for a few, and my college actually sponsored me to go to New Zealand to do a month of farm work there.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. And did you find, because you mentioned earlier that when you were a little bit younger, you had a wobble after doing some work experience. How did you get over the wobble? What sort of made you think, oh, yes, that's a wobble, but I can do this and I still want to? What was the decision process there?
It was kind of the thinking long term. So I thought, oh gosh, it's a lot of responsibility being a vet and having all this resting on your shoulders and things. And actually, as I sort of went through it and realised, actually, I have more responsibility now than I did a year ago. And things like learning to drive and being able to get myself around, that, you know, those sort of things made me think, actually, the responsibility is nothing more than what I'm going to do in day to day.
Yeah.
But the thing that was really appealing as a vet was the kind of developments and the fact I'm not going to be bored in 20 years' time. I may do the same thing every day. I'm still a vet every day, but probably what I do in 20 years' time is going to be very different from what I do today.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, good. So there was a little bit of taking yourself back from that wobble and thinking calmly, giving yourself some perspective and knowing how it might pan out for you in future if you carry on down that road. Okay, yeah, good. Right, so after you'd done your course, are you qualified straight away to go into practice?
Yeah, they sort of drop you out of vet school and off you go. So I was quite lucky that I had been to a practice that had offered me a job. So I'd been there as a student. That's probably the best interview you can have for a job. You kind of know who's who, you know what you're doing, you kind of get to know the clients as a student, and then you go back as a qualified vet. And yeah, probably the first 2 years are quite tough. It's changed a little bit since I did it, in that you get a more structured support phase there now. But I remember about my third week in practice being presented with something I've never seen before, and you sort of end up saying, well, I've got to do something about it because it's really poorly, and you've got to work your way around. So yes, it can be a bit daunting. So yeah, the support around you is quite important to start with, and I think the new mentorship scheme will help a little bit with that. But once I'd done my 2 years and I kind of gained my confidence there, I thought, no, we can do this. There's still stuff that I definitely don't know. There's still stuff I ask colleagues and friends.
As they you, I'm sure.
And yeah, there's definitely no shame in that. But yes, it's a steep learning curve to start with.
Okay. You mentioned a mentoring scheme there. Is that something new that's happening for recently qualified vets, or?
Yeah, when I did it, they did something called a professional development phase, which was a self-assessment type thing, and I had to get a senior colleague to sign me off at the end of it. The new scheme, which they're training the mentors to do it now, so I'm not sure how quickly it will come in. I anticipate in the next year or so, will aim to give you someone who is your direct mentor, and they may be someone who's in your practice or not. So sometimes it's nice to have a set of ears from outside the practice.
Yes.
So you can soundboard ideas off and just check, actually, am I doing okay?
Yeah.
So, yes, we've all got very high, we all are high achievers. We've got very high goals for how we manage every patient. Sometimes that just isn't possible.
No. Okay.
It's nice to be reassured.
Absolutely, yes. So is there a typical day as a vet? I mean, you said there are things that you might do every day. I mean, the boosters and the checkups and things like that, but is there a typical day for a vet?
My days, I'm quite lucky in that my days are quite structured. They're quite routine. I start work at 8:30 and I kind of finish when I finish, and I get a lunch break somewhere.
Yeah.
So it can be a little bit erratic. If an emergency walks through the door, everyone drops everything, and you know, that the diary gets shifted around and things, so it is a bit liable to change. But a routine day for me would either be consulting, so seeing walk-in appointments muddled in with stuff that needs seeing sooner, routine boosters, weight checks, simple things like clipping nails. It really is varied. And other days I'll be on surgery, so I'll admit all my surgical appointments in the morning, do the surgeries during the day, and send them all home in the evening.
Okay. And do you have any overnight shifts? Are you ever on site to look after patients?
I did up until the last 18 months. I haven't done any out of hours, although a little bit got slotted in during COVID to tend to inpatients and things. But no, I haven't done any out of hours for 18 months now. So when I am done, which is quite a
really
relief.
nice. But should newly qualified vets expect to have to do some of the out of hours stuff?
I think for small animals, it's becoming uncommon to have to do it. As I say, newly qualified, I didn't go on the out of hours rate for about 3 months. So I had 3 months to kind of get my feet under the table, work out what's what. And yeah, then I started to see some out of hours with kind of phone backup. So I got someone on call with me for if I had something a bit tricky. And the bulk of the out of hours I did then was large animal. So a lot of the time there, if it's not simple, it's either refer or get someone to give you a hand, basically. But yes, I think if you're going into small animal, it can be quite uncommon to have to do it. If you're going into anything like farm or equine, it's a bit trickier to avoid, but it really is, you can kind of pick a job that suits you a little bit now. And the out of hours wasn't a big problem. It just means that, as I say, when I'm done at work, I'm done. I can go home and not have to expect to go back.
Okay. And how and when would a vet decide which area to specialise in? You're saying now you're in small animal practice, but you previously had done some larger animal work?
Yeah, I initially thought I'd be an equine vet.
Right.
I've always had horses at home and I've still got a horse. But the decision came that the horse was going to be my hobby and small animals were going to be my work. So that helped, I suppose, making that decision for me helped me split up my work life.
Okay.
I think I still don't really know. And if I found, if I was told, oh, actually, you've got to go back and see farm animals.
Yeah.
I think actually I'd probably quite enjoy that. There weren't particular points that I hated of it.
No.
It's as I say, it's kind of feeling confident and getting to know what you're doing. I think, as I said earlier, I like detail. I like to be able to kind of know the answer. And there's a bit more scope to do that maybe in small animal than there is in first opinion equine or farm animal.
Yeah.
So that I suppose was one of my sort of changes. But it was really just I've picked jobs on location more than anything, location and what I think the practice is like, whether it's going to suit me. And it just had so falls that I've fallen into small animal.
Okay. What's the best bit about being a vet?
When something goes well and you send a patient home that maybe wasn't expected to live, or something, something really rewarding like that.
Yeah.
Puppies and kittens and things are cute, but it's the ones where you make a difference that are the ones that you remember. Yeah.
And the worst bit, the hardest bit, are they the same thing?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I think it's dealing with people, if I'm honest. Dealing with people's expectations. They expect you to know the answer, or they expect you to fix it. And sometimes the financial implications of how much it actually costs to fix can be a limiter. And they're very difficult conversations to have, actually, because you want to do your best for the animal, but you've got to respect that some people either don't want that or actually can't afford that.
And how has COVID changed things for vets in practice? Has there been any noticeable change for you?
Well, I think to start with, I'd been at the practice that I'm at now for about 3 months, and I'm suddenly dropped in. I know very few clients, and I'm seeing sort of 33% of the caseload on my own, which is great to get to know people. But I feel a little bit sorry for the client, the other side, who says, I've seen this vet for years and years, and now I've got to see you.
It's that relationship time, isn't it?
Again, a little bit of a rapid relationship building.
Yeah.
it's changed how many animals we can see in a day. So we physically cannot get the same number of patients through the door. You know, my diary is often full. I haven't got time to see any more patients in there. And just because it takes me 5 minutes to get the patient in and out from the car park and things like that. And actually, maybe the bigger problem we've had recently is Brexit and being able to get hold of all our drugs and the things, equipment and things that we need.
And that is very much affecting supplies.
We've got things out of stock in various places, and a lot of it is just because they've got to repackage the medicines, so they don't say EU on them.
Right. My goodness, that must be frustrating. When you're
frustrating, but yes, this is where your thinking outside the box comes in. If there's a different type of medication you can use, you'll probably work your way around to using that.
Yeah.
But you suddenly realise why you use the medications that you do use on a regular basis. Because the animals like them, the owners can give them, and those bits. So.
What are the things that you see coming in veterinary medicine that excite you, that somebody looking to go into becoming a vet could think about researching now, or is there an area that you think is particularly interesting?
Well, I'm enjoying medicine, small animal medicine cases, and actually, having been a very much dog person, I'm suddenly finding that cats are kind of more exciting.
No, surely not. I won't have it.
It's a tricky one. I think there's so many opportunities within it. And I'm sort of halfway through doing an extra qualification in the form of a certificate. And that is in medicine. But when I looked at the different options for certificates, you could do them in practice management, you could do them in, there's a whole certificate in just eyes. So I think I'm covering every body system of the small animal, and yet you can do the same duration of training in just eyes. So no, I think everyone will find their own niche, and for some people that'll be surgery, for some people that'll be medicine. Nutrition I think is a really advancing field at the moment. There's a lot of things you can fix with food, which is quite nice. But yes, we'll see. As I say, I think in 10 years' time, I'm probably going to be doing things very differently from how I am today. And even over the last probably 5 years, things have changed. There's information I learned in my degree that is already outdated.
Wow, that's terrifying, isn't it? Really, but exciting at the same time. I was going to ask you
of evolution.
But
yes, if what you're doing works, fine. But you quite commonly find that what you're doing might not have worked as well as you'd like, and a new option comes available at some point.
Wow. So I was going to ask you, and you vaguely mentioned it, sort of where you see yourself in 5, 10, 20 years' time. Do you see yourself staying in small animal, or you are just open to opportunities as they come along, or is any particular ambition within veterinary science that you'd like to achieve?
I suppose, when I finished university, my decision was, do I go into first opinion practice, or do I go straight to a referral centre, do an internship, or start on a kind of a more structured hospital-based learning programme? And actually for me, I said, no, I want to be able to go to work and enjoy my work, but I also want to be able to enjoy my hobbies. And so for me, going into a sort of first opinion practice and having that work-life balance was my decision. And I suppose that has kind of not restricted me, but it's guided me as to what I will enjoy more. And I think I enjoy more being able to go to work and do my work and learning as I do my work, rather than having a very restrictive learning program where you sort of throw yourself into that for 3 years or so to get to where you want. I admire anyone who can do it.
Yes.
But I think I would go a little bit crazy.
2 questions in one here, really. I suppose the first part is, if you could go back to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her about the path you're about to take? Is there anything you would do differently? And related to that, what advice would you have for any young person wanting to become a vet?
I think you've got to be very open with yourself, and that will help you to be very open with other people. I wish when I'd first qualified I'd asked for more help, because I think that probably would have helped my confidence in what I was doing. And you know, even if I feel they're stupid questions, I kind of wish I'd said, actually, I don't feel confident in this, and just asked someone, because they're either going to say, no, you're doing it wrong before you've done it wrong, or they're going to reassure you that you're doing it right. So I think, yeah, if I'd been more open with myself, and I think that's something I'm learning to do now,
Right.
It helps you to say, actually, I can then ask for help, and you know, no question is a stupid question. I get, you know, I'm in a team of vets where the next vet up is at least 5 years more qualified than me, and we all ask each other questions. We're all very open about it, and being in that sort of environment is definitely, you know, really useful for making sure you don't feel out of your depth at any point.
Okay. Would you do it all again?
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah. I think I'd quite enjoy university again, without the pressures of having to be a grown up.
Yes, I'm quite nostalgic for that period as well.
Yeah.
And what should any young person wanting to become a vet, who's in school and has got to be in school for at least another 2 years, what should they be doing to put themselves in a strong position to make a compelling application?
I think working out, you know, knowing that you want to do it can be very tricky. As I say, I was set on it, and yet that didn't really stop me having a wobble.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, kind of knowing what it involves is more than anything. So talking to vets, talking to people, you know, potentially people from school in years above who have gone to do veterinary degrees, getting their opinions of it, because yeah, I think it changes probably too often for me to say exactly what university is like now, or exactly what being a new graduate is like now. So yeah, kind of getting that knowledge of what you're about to enlist yourself into, and then just seeing the long-term goal. I suppose, yeah, knowing that I wanted to be a vet and that was my pathway to be a vet. Fine. It doesn't mean that you have to do exactly what you thought you were going to do when you started. As I said, I thought I'd go into equine, and actually I don't see a single horse other than my own now, which, you know, is a pathway that's sort of meandered, but it opens lots of doors. If you change your mind about what you want to see in the future, you've got that opportunity. You know, you can be a vet and yet never see a natural animal. So
yeah,
it's a very broad career, let's put it that way.
Okay. Have you got, as we finish up our little conversation, have you got any words of wisdom or quotes that you live by, or inspirational figures that you like to think about in your work?
Not especially, really. I suppose the people who I'm most inspired by are probably the people around me, people I see on a day-to-day basis, and you know, who are in the same shoes as that I'm in, because I think it's very difficult for me to relate to, you know, I suppose for people who are better advertised. I'm not sure I can mention any names here, but it's very difficult for me to relate to them and what they do, because it's a very different setup. And as I say, it's such a varied career choice. Yes, you can slot yourself into any shoes that you want, but no, definitely be proud of the people you work with. Be proud of yourself for what you've managed to deal with, because it's not always easy.
No, indeed.
Hopefully rewarding a lot of the time.
Okay, fantastic. It's been so interesting to talk to you. I'm slightly unnerved that you've gone over to cats rather than dogs. But I'll forgive it. It's been so interesting to talk, and I'm sure that our pupils who will watch this will get some really positive messages from you about your journey and how they can go about becoming a vet. So on behalf of the whole Norwich School community, I really thank you for your time this morning. It's been great.
No trouble at all.
Thank you, Ginny. I'm going to press stop recording now, and then everyone will be able to watch it back. Thanks very much.
Thank you.